The last big update has changed the game quite a bit. The new lightweight ship skills have enhanced the DPS on the faction carriers by a lot, and by a lot I mean the DPS on these things has basically been doubled. And of course, the new shield extender and armor plate skills have significantly improved the tank on these ships. The tank on the other capital ships has also been significantly improved, and the tank on all of the other sub-capitals has been improved with the other skills. So, today I will show you how the faction carriers will work, and I will start with the Astarte. Now, the skills that are going to be important today will be the lightweight ship skills and the team combat skills. As you can see, I have all of the skills on level 5, and I will show you how the maximum performance on this ship will look. Again, the DPS is basically doubled. The ship used to have about 3.4 thousand DPS. Now I expect to have about 7,000 DPS, and that is without the drone bombs. And here you can take a look at the team combat skills. They improved the faction defense mode, the faction carrier defense mode a lot, and you will see that in action today. But overall, a very important update. After all, a lot of players complained that these ships did not have enough DPS. Well, now they should have plenty of DPS, and they should have plenty of tank to go with the DPS. Now, the trade description of this ship hasn't been changed. The Astarte is a Blood Raider ship, so you can expect Blood Raider stats on it. You get armor plate activation time and armor plate bonus, as well as the lightweight ship turret and missile bonus. It is a classic for the other carriers as well. And well, the Astarte definitely has a lot of defense. Might be the ship with the highest paper hit points. Now let's go on to the build. 7.1 thousand DPS, 7,151.40 DPS to be more accurate, and yeah, the DPS on this thing has indeed been doubled. And this is with the DPS build, basically the cheaper option for the rigs. And overall, I'm quite satisfied with how it looks, although I'm not really a fan of using armor plates on these capital ships. I prefer to have more resistance points over raw hit points, but since you already have the plate bonus, you might use them. Again, it depends on what type of ship you have, and it depends on the rigs, and of course, most importantly, it also depends on your skills. Activation time 120 seconds, reactivation delay 60 seconds, a massive improvement. So the activation time is longer than the reactivation delay. That is very nice. 90% is the transfer ratio, and here you can take a look at the other stats that you get when the module is active. 60% bonus on damage, so the total DPS will be about 9,100 DPS, and with the drone bombs you can get about 50,000 DPS, or about 25 to 35,000 if you pick the remote reload option on the drone bombs. And again, the lightweight ships have been improved a lot. Speed, damage, and optimal range, everything has basically been drastically improved. Now these things are a lot more lethal, and I believe it will be time to test out how the missile will compare against the turrets. I have some nice missions to do in the future, so I'll definitely do that as one of my goals to show you. The build: dual armor pairs, one capacitor battery, damage control, dual plates, and dual hardness. As for the rigs, as I mentioned before, a cheap build, although later I will also show you my favorite build for this ship, which focuses on tank. A very similar build as to what I have on the Revelation, on the live server, of course. That's how I use the Revelation on the live server. 2.8 million hit points, 1.076 million in armor hit points. Now I told you that this number will go higher, and with a proper tank build, and if you add integrations that combine the armor volume with resistance, you can technically get about 1.3, 1.4 million armor hit points with about 85-90% armor resistance. And that is indeed a very, very tanky little carrier. Overall, the stats are significantly improved with the skills, and all of the armor plate skills do come into effect. So not only the capital, but even the armor plates for the subcapital, those skills also affect the capital armor plates. So all the effects count for these monsters. Okay, now let me go and let me show you the implants. Now we have 3 options, but I only use 2 implants: bomber tactic and the thermal circulation. Now for the bomber tactic, you can go with the full 300% bonus, although you can't remotely reload them. Very good for alpha damage, and I would say very good for PvP. For PvE, I will go and choose the remote reload, although it will halve the damage bonus, but still 150% bonus on damage is still a really good number, and it will basically already double your DPS, so any extra DPS is good DPS. The general units, as you all know by now, are going to be focused on armor repairs, capacity batteries, and overall tank. That's basically what I run on my ships most of the time. And I can also add the armor plate unit that will increase the armor plate volume per plate by 23%, so that can give me even more extra armor to make this thing even tankier. Overall, a lot of very interesting ideas that you can do with these ships. This build is more, well, you can use it for PvP and PvE. A lot of you guys use these ships for PvE. Now your, I guess your performance with these ships will be significantly improved with the new skills. And in a moment, I'll show you how the ship works in combat. 1.1 million in armor now. Okay, that's very nice. And you have the thermal circulation implant. I am personally a very big fan of the thermal circulation implant because it does give you extra armor resistance. So if you have a full DPS build, and if you want some extra tank, then the thermal circulation is the way to go. Good for PvP, especially good for PvP when you know that you are going to be primary just as the primary target. After all, these ships are quite expensive and they are very juicy targets, and they usually get focused in a big fight. So having tank is important. Now, the active armor resistance could be better. Mostly can be vastly improved with different rigs. Now, I still believe that the way how to use these ships relies on armor resistance or shield resistance. Depends on the type of faction carriers. Some of them are shields, some of them are armor tanks. But I believe that the way to go is mostly tank, unless you plan to use the ship primarily for PvE, then DPS will be your goal. Although, in my case, I would still go with a full tank build, and with the armor plates, the stats don't look that bad. Although I'm not really happy with the resistance. After all, a ship of this value and size definitely does feel like it needs more resistance, but still you have literally over 1 million in armor, and that will take a while to go to 0. Especially if you consider the fact that you have the defense mode that makes your ship tankier and overall does improve the tank quite a bit. So these ships are designed to be taking damage. 9019.28 DPS, which is a significant improvement over of the previous number that was about 5,000. So again, the DPS was basically doubled. Well, technically doubled, but around those numbers. And the faction carry with the most DPS is the Anaconda and the Vazago. I expect these things to break 50,000 DPS with the drum bombs, and I believe that's going to be very interesting to test out. But the Astarte definitely is one of the best looking ones. The Blood Raider skin looks awesome on these ships, and that's why it's my favorite, and that's why I usually start with Blood Raiders. These things look very, very good. Okay, now with the damage mode and with the damage control, the tank is 16 million hit points, 94, 92, 91 and 90% resistance. Not bad, but not too good either. It's actually somewhere in the middle. I'm used to seeing higher tank, and I'll show you the other builds that I run, but still a very, very tanky ship, and tankier than most dreadnoughts, although I'm fairly sure it can't tank as much as a dreadnought, because the dreadnoughts get a bonus on shield boosters and armor repairs. And this is the build that I run on my Revelation. Basically copy past the build from the Revelation, and let's see the stats with this build. I believe that this is the way to go with the Astarte. After all, in a capital fight you will have capacitor. After all, this is a Blood Raider ship, and you kill the capacitors of other capital ships with this thing. After all, you have a bonus on the Nosferatus and Neutralizers, so you can do the classic default layout on the Blood Raiders, dual Nosferatus or one web and the damage mod. In some cases, having the extra medium slot is going to be important, but since the lightweight ships can do the web and scramble stuff, you don't really need to have those modules equipped. The lightweight ships do that for you, so you can focus on webs and Nosferatus. In this case I have a capital Nosferatu and one web. Overall, it does seem to work really well, and the resistance is significantly better. Now let's take a look at the maximum possible numbers: 17 million, 96, 95, 94 and 93. Well, it's a bit better. It is a bit better, but still can be much better if I go with the tank rig layout that I usually have on my capital ships. Okay, let me dock and let's swap to a different build, and then
Docking
I will
request
show you the numbers. Now, I realized I forgot to add the thermal circulation effect. Actually, my apologies, the bombard tactic. Okay, this is the next one that I will show you. So with the bombard tactic, you lose the armor resistance, but you get extra DPS. And again, in some cases the extra DPS is nice, but in some other cases the extra tank is nice. It's highly situational, and it's important that you know where to go and where not to go. After all, flying these ships is currently, well, still very, very risky. I have seen a lot of them go down recently, although usually the main reason why these ships explode is pilot error. The pilot just doesn't know how to fly them, or the pilot just underestimates the opposing fleet. So they usually also don't have a good build, unfortunately. For some reason, good builds have practically vanished nowadays. Nowadays you see hybrid tanks everywhere for some reason. 4.5 million hit points. Okay, with the damage mode or defense mode, 5.7 million, not bad. Overall, solid tank and solid stats. And when you click on the drum bombs, unfortunately the effect still does not show, but the effect does kick in when you start shooting at the target. You will notice a monstrous increase in damage dealt to the target. And the drum bombs, since they have the remote reload, are now a lot more are a lot better than the barrage implant, because the barrage implant is basically only for show, to be honest. It doesn't really it lasts very short. It has good DPS, but it doesn't last long enough, and it goes away pretty quickly, while the drone bombs don't miss, and they apply all that nasty DPS on the target.
Docking request accepted.
Currently are one of the most broken implants in the game. They surpassed the barrage implants at the moment. Okay, let me go to the thermal circulation, because I believe I forgot to change the... Yeah, I did. Well, my bad. I forgot to add the armor skill. And now I have extra 20% armor, and now the ship resistance is much better. Yeah, this is much better. Okay. Well, will be interesting to see how much tank I can get with this thing right now.
Undocking.
Okay, let's orbit the station. Let's turn on all the adaptives. 5.3 million hit points, much better. 87, 83, 80 and 79%. Pretty good. Pretty solid. Not going to complain about that. Now with the defense mode active, the DPS is not the DPS. Well, the DPS is the same. 9.2 thousand, 6.8 million hit points, 19, 87%, 85, and 84%, which is pretty good. Now this looks much better. Mostly because I did forget to add the correct attributes on the thermal circulation, and once the damage control gets out of the cooldown, I'll show you the stats when the damage control is active. I expect about 20 million hit points, something around that number. Okay, let's take a look at the tank when the damage control is active. 20.1 million at 97, 96, 95 and 95%. Really solid and really good. Alright, well, I'm pretty happy with this current build. And now I talked about showing you the tank build that I like, and this is the tank build. 3.2 million hit points. The DPS is 5107.20, still much better than it used to be. 54, 73, 69 and 66% resistance, and this is basically the same layout that I have on the Revelation, with the exact same module layouts. Of course, the armor repair on the Revelation is much better because of the siege mode bonus. And let's take a look at the thermal circulation. Okay, now it's actually in the proper place, and now the tank on this thing will be much better. 3.2 million, 54, 73, 69 and 66. Well, actually it's about the same, because I already had the implant running, I believe. Okay, it's in the cryogenic armor. Well, I'm pretty satisfied with this current layout. Yeah, 63, 64, 70 and 68. Okay, now it did show the proper numbers. Now let's undock to show you the actual numbers that you get with this build. Again, this is the build that I use on the Revelation. This is how my ship is built, and this is how I use the ship. That's why it is super tanky. One of the tankiest ships in the game. 7.7 million hit points, 87, 91, 90 and 89%. Now this is what I'm talking about. Very tanky. With the defense mode active, the DPS is 6.7 thousand, 10 million hit points, 90, 93, 92 and 92%. Again, much better than before. Overall, it should be ridiculously hard to shoot down. Will work extremely well if you have a force auxiliary at your side to boost the armor. And with the damage control active, 29.7 million hit points, This is super tanky. 97, 98, 97, and 97%. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. A extremely tanky little carrier. Excellent. This is the tank that does define these ships from the rest. It is very unique to these ships, and currently the faction carriers are the tankiest ships in the game. Well then, I think it's time to go and to show you the DPS in action. I believe
docking request accepted.
You guys are interested to see what's the difference in DPS between now and back before the skills have been introduced. Again, the skills have drastically improved the ship. All of the faction carriers have been drastically improved, and a lot of players, I think, will definitely enjoy the performance boost that they have received. And well, I have a mission here that is a bit more serious because it has like a lot of ships, 5 waves, and every wave has a lot of elites, basically a mini storyline. Now, before I did start doing these missions, it used to take about 50 minutes, I believe, or a little bit below 50 minutes. Let's say 35, 40 minutes to clear everything with the Astarte, using the old setup with the old skills. Well, not old skills, but without the new skills. And the DPS with this ship was about 3.4, 3.5 thousand. This is with the DPS build, so now I have about 9.2 thousand DPS, and with the dome bombs that goes up to 25, 35,000 DPS. So we are talking about a lot of DPS, and now, as you can see, the performance has been drastically improved. Now the tracking and the DPS and alpha damage of the lightweight ships is much better, and the tracking is also much better. Their speed is also much better, so they do hit the targets very hard. And as you can see, the first wave was practically cleared within a minute, and you can imagine how quickly the other faction carriers will clear the DPS ones, because the Astarte doesn't have the highest DPS. The Anaconda and the Vazago are basically the top DPS faction carriers. They can get about 50,000 easily with the DPS build, and I'm very curious and excited to test them out when I get the chance to. I will basically show you all of these ships, how they work now with the new skills, because now with the new skills they do feel like a completely different ship. They don't feel the same at all. They feel a lot more lethal, and I would say they feel a bit safer to fly, although even with the previous before the update, they were quite deadly, because the lightweight ships were already pretty good against the smaller targets, but now they wreck, and you can expect to delete battleships within seconds if you have the run-bomb implant. Again, having the implant on 45 is not really necessary. Level 15 or level 30 at max is what I would say is the sweet spot. Level 45 is overkill and, well, a bit pointless for a lot of implants, because you get the best effect at 15 or 30. But over here I have the implant at 45, and I haven't really encountered any problems so far. But yeah, the damage application, the DPS is drastically improved. You can see how quickly those ships just start popping. Once the drum bombs come online, I clear like 7 ships in 10 seconds or something like that. So yeah, overall a dramatic or drastic change in the DPS output on the Astarte, and I would say you can expect the same thing on the other faction carriers. On some of them it will be a lot more obvious. I believe the Vazago or Anaconda will just fly through the missions, will be perfect for null-sec ratting. Now, speaking of ratting, I had a theory that the turret lightweight ships were much worse than the lightweight ships that use rockets or missiles, and I will do that comparison. I think it will be fun to see if the rocket or missile lightweight ships are much better than the turret ones. The test that I did before kind of proved that the missiles were just much better, that the bombers were dominating, or the missile destroyers were dominating. And now I'm actually very curious to see what's the difference going to be when I compare them both in the same mission, in the same situation, with the same build, of course, on the same ship. Every faction carrier will be put through the same thing, so that I can show you what's basically the best layout that you can use on these ships. Now, we haven't received any damage mods for lightweight ships. I believe that's probably coming next. So when the lightweight ships get damage mods, the DPS will skyrocket even more. So you can expect even more DPS out of these things, but could be delayed. Doesn't have to be released immediately. I just say that you can expect to get the damage mods on these ships, because every weapon and every weapon system has them. Only lightweight ships don't have them at the moment, so I believe that they will probably add something like that in the future. Besides the damage mod, we can also expect a micro warfare guide of some sorts for the faction carriers. Also something that all the drones, that the other drone weapons and fighter weapons have. Also something that all the weapons are having in the form of tracking computers. So overall, we are definitely looking at a very interesting time for the faction carriers. No idea when the faction dreadnoughts are going to be released. I don't think that's coming anytime soon, to be honest, which is a little bit sad, but you know, it is what it is. So I would actually be more happy if we would get the two variants of the EVE Online ships, like Vagabond, Pilgrim, Hugin, or Appear. I would love to fly these things, and I'm fairly sure that they will be the next ships coming, although, you know, anything happens, so we will see. And I believe I have one more wave left after this mission. I cleared this super fast. I believe the faction carriers now are much better at clearing PvE sites than dreadnoughts with the high angle weapons. The dreadnought with the best potential for high sec ratting at the moment is the Moros, because it has the best tracking. The Naglfar and the Revelation also follow quick behind, and the Phoenix has amazing use in PvP with high angle weapons, with the torpedo launchers, because the Phoenix can easily wreck with those high angle weapons. Although for PvE the Phoenix does seem to fit the category the best. The Revelation has worse tracking, good for sniping, but not really good if you are stationary and if there's small ships. So the Moros does fit the category the best. The Naglfar, it can be, but it doesn't have the tracking that the Moros has, so the Moros in the end has the best potential to be used for ratting in null sec. Although for the faction carriers, doesn't matter which one you pick, they all use the same weapon, so it doesn't really matter because all of them do hit the target really well, all of them do apply the damage really well, and all of them have basically been buffed. The only difference would be, I guess, in the clear time, because again, the Anaconda and the Vazago have the best DPS. Which is funny because I expected the villain to have the highest DPS because usually Gallant faction ships tend to have a higher DPS than the other factions, but I guess that doesn't really count for the capital ships. The Anaconda and Vazago, with their bonuses, have by default the highest DPS. And I did try them out both in the past, and I will try them both again with the new skills, of course, to see the actual difference that we get from the skills. But so far, I am quite happy with the results. This ship is performing really well, as you can see. No issues in clearing the mission. It is, I feel like it is 3 times faster than it used to be. I am clearing this in about 12 minutes. Well, since the start, from start to finish, it will take about 12 minutes. It used to take 3 times longer with the previous, well, not with the previous build, but before the new skills have been introduced. So we're looking at a indeed massive boost in performance, not only on paper but in practical use as well. I value practical use and practical DPS a lot more over just some random stats and random big numbers. Big numbers don't mean anything if those big numbers don't make an effect on the field. And this is where the barrage implant falls, because the barrage implant looks nice on paper, but you know, when you actually start using it, it's still broken to have that DPS, but it's not really as lethal as some might think. It's still broken. It's still the most broken implants because a bunch of barrage Macarials can do a lot of damage, but a solo Macarial, and in most cases, if you have a good build, you can easily counter that. But with the drone bombs, it's a little bit different, because with the drone bombs, you have the status, and that thing can be sneaky. So you can't counter something that you don't see until it's too late, and that's why the drone bombs are now much better and much more broken than the barrage implant and some of the other implants as well. Well, that was a very nice run with the Astarte. Again, I'm very happy with the ship. There's a massive boost in performance, and this thing is now indeed a terrifying ship that you can encounter in the game. So next time when I return, I'll be taking a look at the Anaconda or the Vazago, or both side by side, who knows, and I'll be checking out the villain as well, and I'll compare the turret versus the missile lightweight ship performance, just to see which one clears content faster. So with that being said, hope that you have enjoyed. If you want to support me, feel free to like and subscribe, and with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.